Your health is in your own hands. Is it better to do something now before you get to a point where it's irreversible? Or should you just get on with it and do it? I mean, I obviously have regrets for getting to my highest weight, my heaviest weight. A lot of people say, oh, no regrets, I've learned so much. I've got regrets for getting to my heaviest weight. I'm paying for it now, and I'm going to be paying for it for years to come. So do it. Just take it by the horns and do it. Reach out to someone that you see has either done it themselves, or reach out to someone who's close to you, who understands you, won't mock you, will help you. Just take your life back. Don't let anything control your life apart from you.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Slimming Stories. I'm your host, Claire Oldham West. It's January the 31st. I just can't believe how quick this month has gone. It's just flown by. If you're listening to today's episode and you're kind of like clinging on to that glimmer of hope back in January with those shiny New Year's resolutions and maybe just need to reconnect with your motivation and mojo, I've got a great guest in store for you. Andy Boland has lost 6.5 stone to date and has achieved so much, starting with a weight of 35 stone. The changes that it's had with his weight loss and his health is truly remarkable. It really is. And I know that Andy will be off to motivate you and inspire you too. He's built up an Instagram account, he's got a personal trainer, he looks to self-help books, and is also part of a football team called Man v Fat. And this is a fantastic football team that focuses on weight loss and fitness. This is a great community for guys that might not feel comfortable walking through the doors of a weight loss group. I think this is really, really positive, and I know you're going to love Andy's story. Andy's now looking to motivate and help other people as a coach to help people with their weight loss and fitness journeys. Here's introducing Andy to his episode of Slimming Stories. When I looked through Instagram and I was looking for inspirational stories, I think just the way that Andy shows up on Instagram, his vulnerability, his honesty, was just really inspiring. And the fact that I think it might be the first rocker that I've had on the show. And I thought, I've got to have him on. I've got to have him on. I want to start by telling the guests that I haven't yet found you on Instagram, where you started with your weight loss journey.
So January 2018, I weighed in at 35 stone. A few health complications. I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes. I had some trouble with my chest, so palpitations, chest pains, that kind of thing, which also I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. So it was at that point that I realised that at 29 years old, something needed to be done. Being sort of wheeled into hospital in the back of an ambulance and a couple of nights before New Year's Eve of 2018, it was probably one of the lowest points in my life, yeah, without a doubt.
Goodness. And up until that point, had anybody tried to help you or assist you? Or was it a case that, I don't know, either stubbornness or not wanting to connect with the reality of where your weight loss was going? What held you back from doing anything until that point?
I probably couldn't find anyone that didn't try to help me, if I'm perfectly honest with you, because you always got the comments from the family members saying that you need to do something. Friends would say they'd be worried about me, but I just found myself in a ruck of bad habits. I was drinking 5, 6, 7 nights a week heavily. I was eating to compensate for the hangovers, for the, feeding yourself before going on a mad session. And it was a vicious cycle. I had a lot of people that would comment and say, you need to do something, family members especially. And I think it was just a case of having some really terrible habits that was keeping the weight on me and having a bit of a disregard for my own health.
And to take that step to do something, it sometimes does take a lot and does take that shock of what happened to you. So before that time, what was life like for Andy on a day-to-day basis, taking in that food, taking in that alcohol?
I loved it. I can't deny I absolutely loved it. Like, obviously, it was tough on tough on me elsewhere. Like eating and drinking was a great time at the time, but then the consequences of the drinking was and eating was pretty rubbish. So, being constantly sweaty, being out of breath, climbing one flight of stairs, struggling to walk 100 yards without my back going. That was tough, but I obviously used food and drink as a coping mechanism, and found solace in food and drink. And in the industry that I worked in at the time, it was commonplace to go out after work and have a few pints, which would lead to a few more pints and a few more pints and then a takeaway. So it wasn't difficult virtually every night to find someone to go to the pub with. You can have a good laugh, have a chat, talk about how crap the day was, etc., and then take away on the way home. Next day, feeling a bit ropey, big load of food for breakfast, snacks, coffees, trying to keep yourself awake with all the coffee and the cake and all those kind of things. And I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but obviously I was lacking in other areas of my life as well, which kind of wasn't enjoyable. I think the food and the drink as a coping mechanism definitely helped.
Yeah.
Definitely helped, unfortunately.
And the void that you was trying to fill, can you talk me through any of that void? And at what point did you recognise that?
I mean, I don't even know if I was trying to fill a void. I think I was just enjoying myself.
Yeah.
More than anything. Like there would always be someone after work that would say, "You come in the pub." So I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go for it." So then the next night it'd be someone else. You'd say, "We go to the pub," and then eventually you get known as someone who just goes to the pub all the time, and people come up to you at the end of the day and go, "You come at the pub?" You're like, "I'm already there, mate. I'm already there." Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't say it was filling a void so much. I think it was, like I say, just these bad habits, terrible habits that I'd gotten into over the last few years, especially before actually making a change.
So it was more of a cultural thing that you was in this routine, and I bet you was like one of the most popular guys at work. It's like, let's phone Andy, let's contact Andy, he'll be at the pub.
If someone wants to go to the pub, yeah, definitely. Definitely. But any other events like playing football and doing other normal things, no. No, I wasn't. No. I was the one to go to the pub with. Yeah.
Yeah. Was you not able to do anything physically in terms of exercise before the weight loss?
I mean, going from the 4th floor of the office that I was in to the 5th floor was a struggle.
Really?
So no, yeah. So sometimes I'd get in the lift and go down to the ground floor, have a quick walk outside, come back in, and get the lift up to the 5th floor, so I could actually avoid being seen going from the 4th floor to the 5th floor and being judged as lazy. And if I did take the stairs, by the time I got up to the top, I was pretty exhausted.
Goodness, that, I totally understand where you're coming from with that, and that's obviously the extent that your weight had got to avoiding that confrontation. There is a stigma around weight gain in terms of the size that you obviously had got yourself to, and shame around that too. And I'm not going to sit here and lie, because we all know, we've all seen that, the fat shaming and what goes on. Did you feel that you was judged when you was at work? Did you feel that you had to do that to avoid any sort of confrontation or conversation around that?
Yeah, without a doubt. In the industry that I work in, you see a lot of people who are physically fit and active. They're thin, good-looking people, and I was almost an outcast, really, kind of, unless I was going to the pub, as mentioned before. But yeah, 100%. I would do that, and maybe it wouldn't even be people that would say anything. But it'd just be in my head that I'd think someone might say something. But you always see the occasional glances where people are looking from side to side and then nudging someone to look at you. And you'd occasionally get your friend as well who'd rib you, all in good nature. Yeah. But at the same time, having been heavy all of my life, being ribbed even in good nature was something I struggled with, if it was to do with weight, because it was something I'd been judged for my entire life. Quite difficult, really, to take even good-natured joking about my weight at the time.
So when you say that you've been overweight all of your life, did that start during the school years, or was it after leaving the school?
During school. I can remember being a heavy kid back when I was 5, 6, 7.
Right.
When I was back in school that young, yeah. So I've always been the heavy kid. But then it didn't get out of hand until I left school, went to college, when I started getting very heavy. So my activity was minimal, started drinking, I was eating more, wasn't exercising, and the weight started piling on after school, more in college. And then obviously got to uni and I was drinking even more. Weight went on even higher. And then, I was always big. I was always the big kid.
There's a big culture at university and college around drinking. I can remember back when I was at art college, it was like, okay, we'd have this lesson at such and such time, so we'd go to the local pub. That independence and finding yourself, finding your feet, and I for me, it was almost like fitting in, because I wasn't a big drinker. But the people that I live with, that was like you say, every night. And is that how it started? Did you find yourself at university just getting into that culture and drinking every night because that's what everybody else did?
So I didn't actually move away to university. I was at home. So during the day at uni, I wouldn't drink because I'd drive into uni. But when I was 18, even up until before I was 18, I was drinking in the local Royal British Legion. I'd go for drinks with my dad when I was younger. As well, he'd take me out drinking. And I started working in that Royal British Legion as well. So it became commonplace when I was working there, I'd have a few pints. I'd eat some of the snacks there that we had, and then I'd get home, have a few more beers.
Yeah.
So it was drinking most nights was then. But then, I guess growing up from when I was probably 15 or so onwards, it was drinking most nights.
Yeah.
Obviously not as much when I was younger because I couldn't handle it. But I remember from when I was 15 onwards, it was drinking most nights. Yeah.
And often I'll interview guests that have gone down the food route, or maybe I'd like the weekend where possibly like binge drinking, but I've not often interviewed guests that have done both. And to have that much sugar and that much, I guess, sugar release from your food and all of that combined, you can understand where the weight went on. Going back to that moment where you was rushed to hospital, can you talk me through that and what went through your mind as you lay on that stretcher?
I'd had warning signs up until this point from maybe the September or October onwards. So there'd been a day where I'd gone out drinking at maybe 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, finished maybe 11 p.m. I'd been out drinking the night before, and I wasn't even sure if I'd had a heart attack that weekend. Like I've no idea. I don't think I had.
No.
But I felt like I may have done. I've subsequently had heart tests where they've said function's all fine, but I was worried from that October up until December. And then that night, it was December 30th, I think, 2017, or December 29th, one or the other. I was due to go up to the parents for New Year the day after. And I just couldn't sleep. I was lying on my front. I was getting palpitations. And about 1 in the morning, something along those lines, I rang the NHS direct, but not the emergency. And they came out, and I've been putting it off because I've been getting these palpitations at night for quite a few nights, and I've been putting it off. And I just thought I have to do something just in case, because I got to the point where I think thinking about the palpitations was just making them worse. So I just figured I'm going to call in. I'm just going to see what they say in 111. There's no harm in doing that. Ended up the paramedics came out, did a load of tests, and said that there's nothing that seems to be wrong, but we'd rather you go in and get the checks. So I was like, yeah, fair enough. I have to do something here. Just play it by the book. I went under my own power, so I wasn't too bad. I wasn't like I was dying or anything, or I wasn't being stretchered in. So I walked to the ambulance, but it was embarrassing more than anything, because at the end of the day, I'm 29 years old, and I'm thinking, I've put myself in this position. I've done this to myself, and I've got to take responsibility now and do something about this. So I'd read a book not long before that, I think. Was it? Yeah, it might have been the year before or 6 months before or something like that. And it really changed my life in that it said you have to take responsibility for your actions, because if you don't, then you're not going to learn from it and you're not going to progress in life. So I was like, right, I have to do something about this now, because my weight is killing me. I'm not succeeding in any form of life because of my weight. if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
just figured sitting in that ambulance, waiting at the hospital, worrying and putting my parents through unnecessary worry, and my friend that I lived with, putting them through worry for no need. I thought, I've got to do something. I have to do something. So it was a life changing moment. And I think I count myself lucky that I had this and that it wasn't any more serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it had have been, I might not be sitting here talking to you now, or I might have been diagnosed with something irreversible. I might have been diagnosed with full-on diabetes and blood pressure that would mean I'd have to take medication for the rest of my life. So I count myself very lucky that I had this warning sign and this
Yeah.
kick up the arse that I needed to change my life.
I'm just thinking, you know, your family, your friends must have been so relieved that you then decided to make that change. Obviously, it's been awful what you've been through, but knowing that you'd made that decision to make a change must have been such a weight off their shoulders, knowing that, you know, you're going to put your health on a different platform and make those changes. What was their response to your, I guess, light bulb moment?
Naturally, they were shocked. Like you say, they were shocked that I was going through this. And they were worried, they were concerned that this had happened. But like you say, yeah, definitely they were overjoyed that I was going to be doing something about my life, because, you know, when I look back, I was a mess. I was a mess, and I can say that about myself and my own personal situation. I was a mess. And I think, you know, they all knew that, and a lot of them wouldn't say anything, but some of them, you'd often get them say, "We're worried about you. You need to do something." And you'd maybe get subtle hints saying that, "Oh, we're going to try and lose weight. Should we all try and do this together?" And naturally, like I'd say, yeah, let's do it. I got loads to lose, and I'd back out. I'd have a strong memory of they'd organise running a 5K and a 10K.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, yeah, definitely, I'll do that. I'll walk around. It'll be fine. I'll do it. And I sent a picture to them from the pub. Because I didn't turn up for it, you know, because I'd bottled it, which is what I did. And I think, a lot of them, I still get messages from them now. And especially when I'd moved to another office to work, and I saw some of them after a while who hadn't seen me or who didn't know what I was doing. And they were shocked to see the transition and the transformation. Even after, I think, what was it? It was probably after about 12 months of me starting that they could see the differences, and it was encouraging to see their reaction. For them to actually see, looking incredible, mate, you're doing really well. So yeah, they were happy for me to make that change. They were definitely proud of me.
I mean, those transformation photographs on your Instagram page are truly, I mean, they are shocking, but they are remarkable that you've been able to make such a positive change in terms of your health, and like you said, that you didn't have a life back then, and that you was a bit of a mess, and you had quite a lot of, I guess, negative self-talk. Like you said, at work you felt that everyone was good looking and was a certain way. How is your mindset changed in terms of the self-talk now? Could you tell me, or even try and explain, or one sentence that you would tell yourself on repeat that you knew was nonsense, which would BS? What conversation did you have with yourself in terms of your weight loss, what you could do, what was possible, that you really knew was total BS?
I think it's a difficult question for me to answer at the minute, because the negative self-talk is still there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've recently been discussing this with my coach about how I view myself. And even though I'm virtually half the person I was, I still sometimes see myself, when I first flick to a picture of myself in my head, I sometimes still see that I'm that 35 stone guy.
Yeah.
So it's not fully sank in. It's not something that has fully embedded in my brain. And he's sent me a book actually to read on that. And I started reading it, but I haven't been able to sort of commit to reading it properly and engaging with it properly recently. So it's something I do still need to work on, but I know for a fact that I'm not that guy anymore. Like, I look in the mirror, I've recently started lifting weights, and I can see changes in my body already. And even though I've seen lots of changes in my body from when I first started, because there's still quite a bit of fat there, because there's still quite a bit of loose skin there, still not happy with my appearance, still not happy with the way my clothes fit. I'm still not 100% happy with everything. So there is a way to go, and I'm conscious of that. But at the same time, I've got a lot less to do now than I did. So whilst it is overwhelmingly positive, there's still that negative self-talk in there. There's still I'm not good enough. There's still I'm the fat guy. So there's a long way to go for me, I think. And I think you see a lot of it as well with people who've lost a lot of weight. They still take a little bit of time to adjust.
Absolutely. Everything that you've just explained from the previous interviews I've done, this is something that's quite common, that it takes a time, I guess, for the mind to catch up with the physical body. And if you think about it, if you think about any type of learning, if you think about a computer, if you think about the information that has to go into a computer to do whatever the computer needs to do, and it's just like a young child, all that information that's, you know, drilled in from a young age. And like you said, you know, you was around 5 years that you recognise that you was different, and then up to the point of having this problem with your heart, and then recognising, okay, it's physically I'm different, but I don't quite see that. And I don't think it's always a case of body dysmorphia. I think it's just the old stories that are on loop and just go round and round and round and round, and making that connect is where I feel, in my experience of talking to people around weight loss, that's where the magic lies. I think that's where the magic lies, because doing the mindset piece is often what will keep people at target. That's the piece that will keep people in control of the weight, when they can do the mindset piece. And yet often that is the hardest part, because they're having to let go of the past, do it also and let it go. And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Just you know, letting go and then recognizing. I mean, for yourself, you've been given this almost like a new life, like a new chance. You've got the second chance at life, because if you'd have continued, if that hadn't have happened, like you said, you know, you could have been on meds, things could have been totally different, but you escaped that and you've had that second chance. And making that connect, it's hard. And I'm so glad that you've got a coach. So is that somebody that helps you in terms of your physical body, in terms of your training for weights?
Yeah, so it's a weight loss coach. He's on my Instagram. He's called Nas, Nas Fit Boss, and he's an interesting character, very interesting character. So he doesn't do what you'd think a typical weight loss coach would do. Most weight loss coaches will go, here's a fitness plan, here's a diet plan, on you go. And then if you struggle 1 week, you can't do it, you know, then you're a failure. However, the way NAS works is it's all about changing a couple of habits every week and sort of building better habits over time, gradually introducing them. And yes, he does help me with different food stuff. He does help me with exercise plans and that kind of thing, because he's a qualified personal trainer. But he makes it easier for you. And he doesn't do it as if like going straight in, balls to the wall, getting it done. He breaks it down into smaller pieces and gradually increases, you know, your activity levels, gradually increases your better food choices. Now, I'd lost a lot of weight before going to NAS, but I'd found myself putting the weight back on. And it was getting to a point where I was actually getting worried that I'd get to the point again where I was at before, 3 years ago. But then I approached NAS, signed up with him, and we've been working together now for 4 months, I think. And the changes have been great for me.
Yeah.
But not only in weight loss and in my habits and that kind of thing, but he's also helping me actually become a weight loss coach myself. So it's a career that I actually want to move into, because I feel if I can help people do what I've done, then that'll be so rewarding for me. I can sort of learn from what I've done. I can learn from what Naz teaches me, and I can give back, and I can do what I've done and help other people. I think that'll just be, for me, extremely rewarding.
That's just so lovely to hear. I could just give you a virtual hug, because who would want to be trained by somebody who's super fit, who's had no history in terms of difficulties with food and behaviours? Sometimes you just want somebody that's been on that journey, don't you? Sometimes you want to connect with somebody that knows exactly how it feels to be overweight, how exactly it feels to take that first step in terms of walking at speed, and then maybe running. You need that, don't you? That relatability. And I think you'll be fantastic. And I can see just through this conversation and through how you show up on Instagram that, you're coming from a genuine place, and people will home in on that, because you can't really hide that. I think the way that you show up, I think that is fantastic, and I'm so pleased that you've recognised this in yourself. And it sounds like the coach that you've got is helping you with your confidence and making you realise these, I guess, possibilities, that this could be your new life. You could be a weight loss coach.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got that relatability as well, because he was overweight at 1.2.
Right.
So, that was one of the main selling points for me. And I'd known of him through Man v Fat Football, on the forums there. So he coaches at Man v Fat in Cardiff. And it was through Man v Fat that I lost a lot of my weight. So I knew that he had dealings with Man v Fat, which sort of got us connected in the first place. And then over Instagram, we got talking, booked me in for a consultation. And at the point, I think I was 4 stone on top of my lightest weight. So I'd gained 4 stone since being at my lightest weight just before last Christmas. And I just thought, do you know what? I've got nothing to lose here.
No.
Not only in that I want to do this myself, even before being coached by Naz, this was something that was a pipe dream for me and something that I really wanted to do. But I just thought, I've got to take this opportunity now to get my health back under control and to sort of help me understand when something does go wrong, how I can fix it.
That's right. And this Man v Fat, is that a football team? Is that what you've just said? Am I understanding that right?
Man v Fat, it's an organisation, and there's plenty of leagues around the country, and there's even a few in Australia as well, and America, I'm led to believe. Basically, you join part of a team. There's a few teams in the league. There's between 6 and 8. Depends on how many people are registered. And you play a game of 6-a-side or 5-a-side, depending on how big your teams are, how big the league is. But before your game, you weigh in, and you get points for losing weight. You get bonus points for hitting a 5% weight loss, 10% weight loss, losing weight 3 weeks in a row.
Right.
It's great. It is great for accountability, and it's like I lost weight, I think, in the 4 seasons that I played there. So that would have been 48 weeks, maybe more, maybe less. Like I lost weight probably about 42 weeks, something like that. So it's something that
popular.
Kept me nailed on me. Well, I did become I did become captain of my team. Wow. Because of my weight loss, but I was absolutely terrible at football. So I just thought, honestly, I was awful. Probably because I was a fat kid and never got picked to play football, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I was terrible at football, but I was doing it on the scales. I was absolutely smashing it on the scales, and that was sort of my input to the team. I just thought, if I can't play on the pitch, I'll do it off the pitch. And I was getting big weight losses every week. The more I think about it now, knowing what I know from what I've learned over the last few months, it's not the healthiest and most sustainable way of losing weight, the way that I approached Man v Fat Football.
Okay.
But it's obviously put me in a great position in terms of I've lost this weight, and, I'm a lot more physically active. I'm fitter. So it is good, but focusing purely on the scales isn't the best way to look at weight loss.
No, 100%.
100%. Where it's rewarding weight loss and penalising weight gain, that's something that's not ideal.
I think depending on the plan that you follow and the group that you join will have a different perspective in terms of weight loss and weight gain. My own personal experience, so I've been to Weight Watchers very early on. I think I was 14 the first time I went to Weight Watchers, but mainly Slimming
Same.
World. Yeah, it's a running theme, isn't it, in the UK? Yeah, in my experience, I've never felt shamed in my group. I've also heard that it just depends on consultants and things like that. But I totally understand the scales, and I do really appreciate what Weight Watchers are doing now in terms of you can show up, and I think they like you to weigh I'm probably going to say this totally wrong. Anybody in Australia that follows Weight Watchers, do forgive me, but I think you can weigh every 5 weeks or something. So it's not every week, and it's more around the mindset and keeping, I guess, yourself accountable to the weight, but you don't have to weigh every week. But to be fair, in terms of Slimming World, I've had occasions where I've said, look, I just can't face the scales, because what they do is like a round robin. And I think they do listen, but I think because there's so much media, I guess, there's so much media around that number on the scale, that there's that hidden pressure. And I found it myself. I know when I post on Instagram, I did go through one period of time where I kept putting my weight on there, or my weight loss, and then I had a bad month or whatever, and then it was like that shame of thinking, oh goodness, have I now got to tell my followers that I put 7 pounds on or something? Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I think it is changing, but I don't think the diet industry is quite there that yet. And I understand the need to have that measure, and I'm not sure how it's ever going to be totally, I guess, dissolved, because we do need that, don't we? We do need to know, I guess, some sort of measure of our BMI. We do need to know if we're in a healthy body or a body that could put us at risk for heart disease. We need to know that, don't we? But how to measure that going forward on a long-term strategy, I'm not really sure how they could change it.
Well, BMI is an outdated tool, isn't it? It's a very outdated tool. It was something that was set up in, was it either the late 1800s, early 1900s, by a French scientist of some sort who, don't quote me on that. He was someone from back in the day anyway, and it was an average weight of white men. Now,
okay.
Yeah, that's not going to be something that's not going to be something that's suitable for, people of our time now, because we are naturally bigger. It's not going to be suitable for people who aren't white.
Yeah.
So it's not a good indication for those groups of people to begin with now. And the fact that in America, for example, it affects people's health insurance, your BMI is slightly higher. There's quite a few things that have been said about the BMI scale now, but measure of fitness, measure of health, we can measure ourselves. That's definitely a better indicator. See how much body fat we've got on our bodies rather than just looking at the scales. And also you can be, it was something I was reading yesterday in an optimum nutrition course that I'm doing now. People who are overweight but are fit are less likely to suffer from cardiovascular disease than people who are of a healthy body weight but are unfit. There's a lot of stigma on the number on the scales, I think, and bearing in mind as well that the scales can vary, not just because of body fat, but because of your muscle mass, because of retained fluid. For women, if they're on their period, they're going to get a higher weight that week. Yeah, it's not the best measure. It's not the best measure, but combining different measures, it's a safer approach. And like the way that I do it with my coach now is that I weigh daily and I look at my average for the week. So it could be that, say, for example, on a Saturday, I have a lot of carbs. My weight's going to be higher on the Sunday because every gram of carbohydrates hold on to about 3 grams of water in your body. So if you have 300 grams of carbs, you're going to be holding on to almost a kilo of water, so 2.2 pounds of water. I think those are the right numbers.
Okay.
So it's not the be-all and end-all. Weighing daily and taking an average accounts for those spikes. Or like you say, weighing every 5 weeks, that could even be better because you can see then a downward trend. But weighing weekly is a bit dangerous because if you have that one bad day and the next day is the day that you weigh, that's going to be like, oh, I've gained weight. And that could send you then spiraling back into old habits. It could send you, reaching for comfort foods and that kind of thing. So jumping on the scales on a weekly basis isn't the best measure, I think, from what I've learned anyway recently. Taking averages every day, or taking a weekly average every day, or jump on the scales monthly, and just using measurements and how your clothes fit.
The Slimming World plan that I follow, for example, there's different plans where you can accelerate your weight loss that are around, trying to cut down on processed carbs, let's say, and potatoes and things like that. From what you've explained, that would be the reason why. And from that look on your face, I know you're ready for me, aren't you? Because my friend's exactly the same. She's trained to be a nutritionist, and she's like, Claire, it's all wrong. Slimming World's all wrong. But what I say,
absolutely not. No, absolutely not. I'll never say that Slimming World's wrong. I think if you follow the Slimming World plan to the letter, then it's good. I also appreciate that the accountability that you get in the Slimming World group as well is going to help people. I think with Slimming World, it helps people to cook better as well, so they can learn how to cook more. With Slimming World, I've spoken to people who said
liking the positives. I'm liking the positives,
yeah, no,
Andy.
Absolutely. There's positives and negatives, but Slimming World, I think, with the way that they say things are sins, I'm not that comfortable with.
I hear you.
Because that's got a negative connotation on foods, when at the end of the day, food is fuel, and food is there to be enjoyed as well. But demonizing potatoes, that's something that gets to me. Because we need carbohydrates. Yeah,
they don't demonize potatoes. I don't really like coming on the podcast and talking about sins and food and things, because I'm not a consultant. I don't work for Slimming World. But in terms of different plans that can accelerate your weight loss, there are those plans within Slimming World, and some of those plans are around reducing those type of carbohydrates. But whatever plan works for you is the plan that you need to be on.
What you said, when you absolutely nailed it on the head there, if you find something that works for you and you enjoy it, then do it. Slimming World, Weight Watchers, calorie counting, keto, Atkins, whatever you find that you enjoy, you do it. And if it works, 100%.
And it's been lovely chatting with you, Andy. If anybody listening is interested to maybe start some of the things that you've mentioned around the football and getting in touch with a coach, but having that, I guess, honest conversation with yourself without having to go through what you went through, what piece of advice could you give somebody?
Your health is in your own hands. Is it better to do something now before you get to a point where it's irreversible? Or should you just get on with it and do it? I mean, I obviously have regrets for getting to my highest weight, my heaviest weight. A lot of people say, no regrets, I've learned so much. I've got regrets for getting to my heaviest weight. I'm paying for it now, and I'm going to be paying for it for years to come. So do it. Just take it by the horns and do it. Reach out to someone that you see has either done it themselves, or reach out to someone who's close to you, who understands you, won't mock you, will help you. Just take your life back. Don't let anything control your life apart from you. You control the controllables, and your weight is controllable. Obviously there are people who do suffer from medical conditions that mean weight loss is extremely difficult, and I appreciate that. So I'm never going to say, if I can do it, someone else can. That's not something that I'll ever say, because it's difficult. And the longer you leave it, the harder it gets.
Yeah.
And for me, whilst my weight loss for a good while was easy, that was because I had a lot of weight to lose. Now I'm getting to the stage where it's a lot more difficult. And, I look back and think there are times where I could have done something different, and I should have done something different. And I wish I had done something different, and I'm paying for that now, that I've not done it differently. But I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there at some point. I know I am. I have to, because at the end of the day, I want to help people do what I've done. I need to actually look approachable and look as if I can help people, because at my current weight, people will look at me and go, how can you be a weight loss coach when you're still heavily overweight? So yeah, for me, it's do it. Just do it. As Nike said, or as Nike say, just do it. Genuinely, it's the positives outweigh the negatives. Yeah. Negatives are you're going to be going through maybe a little bit of discomfort for a little while, but after that, it's going to be the best thing that you've ever done.
Brilliant. And
reach out and talk to someone. That's one thing I can say is just reach out and talk to someone. It's a huge thing.
That is a great piece of advice, Andy. And I could sit and talk in response to that for an hour, explaining to you why you've got to be super, super, super fit before you start talking to people that are overweight about losing weight loss successfully. So I would 100% challenge that, but I won't. I'll be kind.
We can pick that up another time.
You say that you've still got weight to lose, but look how far you've come. I mean, for goodness, 16.5 stone down. 16.5 stone down, and you think for some reason that you're not going to be able to help somebody who's been in your situation to motivate them to take their own life back. I mean, that is, we need to just forget that story, where that story's come from. Forget that. But no, I know
I'll be able to help. I know I'll be able to
you
help.
You will,
people,
exactly.
At the same time, people might look at me and think, this is where I'm coming from now, is that people might actually look at me and go, you're overweight, how can you help people? So I know I'll be able to help people.
Andy, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Nonsense.
Yeah, I know I'll be able to help people.
It's a story. It's a story. Park it. It's a story. You will be able to help people, and you are 100%. Helping people by showing up on Instagram, being honest, showing these fantastic transformation photos. You're helping people now. You are helping people now. You need to own that, Andy. Honestly, you need to own that. So if people have not found you yet on Instagram, where can they find you?
Instagram handle is Achieving Andy.
Achieving Andy. And I'll put that in the show notes. And I'm also going to ask Andy just to send me the links too for the book and the coach and this football club. Because I think for guys in particular, that would be a great thing to be part of. If you're listening to this and maybe that has inspired you to perhaps be part of that team, sounds like a great thing where you can maybe get support. And I know that a lot of guys wouldn't like to turn up to a weight loss group, but maybe they would feel comfortable in going to the football club. So thank you so much, Andy. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care. I think this episode today is a great insight into looking at the weighing scales and taking measurements and I guess standing back from the diet industry that we know more commonly, and just to put into practice some practical help if the scales are talking to you in a negative way. If that number on the scale is really, really grating you every time you step on and you're feeling that you can't face the scales, maybe you're somebody that is getting on the scales a couple of times a day and it's just kind of taken over. And I think Andy in this episode gives some great help and advice how to look to measure your weight loss success and not just focus on that scale once a week. I think this is a great gift that Andy's given us, just to look at things differently in terms of our weight loss and that number. And it can be big, can't it? It can be big. It can just block us in the way of reaching our goal and getting past that number on the scale and going into that next stone bracket that we need to reach our target. Please go and show Andy some love on Instagram. And again, it's a great, open and honest interview, and I really appreciate anybody that comes onto the podcast and goes into how it feels and how it's affected them in terms of their journey and the feelings that come up. If you're new to the podcast and if you would like to support me through my own podcast journey, then please hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Hit subscribe and that will help me climb the podcast charts. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Slimming Stories. Until next week, take care and I'll see you then.